Welcome, everybody, to PT Shop Talk, episode 10. I'm Casey Hansen, and with me today is the world's greatest showman, Nick Doling.
It's not true, but welcome to the Pod of Thunder, everybody.
Oh, that's our
We're
new
gonna keep it
intro.
going. It's gonna go. It's gonna become the thing.
We'll see. We'll see.
Just acquiesce.
So
Say you love it.
I love it. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about our experiences with our CIs and as students and things that stood out for us. And then we'll end the episode with our top 5 favorite male lead performers. We're not talking who's the best vocalist. We're talking who puts on the best performance.
Dang right. It's gonna be hot.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to hearing about your experience as a student. It starts to feel a while ago. I take a lot of students.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to put yourself back in that mindset because I actually feel like students nowadays are a lot better than I was. So maybe I was just bad. Maybe school's come along. Maybe things have changed. I don't know.
Right, a little bit of all the above. I'm being honest.
No, thanks.
No, I'm being a smart ass, but same for myself. I think it's the evolution of knowledge and research and just getting better at it. Like they're getting some exposure to dry needling now in school. They're getting some exposure to PNE in school. And I think those are valuable things that weren't there at all when I was going through classes. Like we had psychosocial factors and we dug into that. That was it.
Yeah, just in critical thinking, they seem better. I don't know. When I was in school, we talked about this many times. There was a lot of guru stuff. So it was based on whatever algorithm your teachers taught you. And it was very fit them in and go. Now kids nowadays, they seem to be able to synthesize information a little better. And it's not do 4,000 special tests to try to prove the same thing. I feel like that's how it was when I was in school. It's like, here's a shoulder, here's all the tests you should do, even though like they're not great tests and they're all provocative and they're all telling you the same thing. Let's do them anyways.
Well, I think there's a lot of that has to do with like how good you are doing the tests as well and staying within the cluster for a given region. I mean, tell me you're a bitter old therapist without saying you're a bitter old therapist, Casey.
I am an optimistic young therapist. I think we're way better now than we used to be. We didn't even have clusters. I feel like when I came out, it was like, here's the 8 tests for a rotator cuff. Do them as you see fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah, here's like 4 tests to do. If they hit 3 of the 4, you're golden. Like that's just way more sense.
Yeah, we're coming into this thing hot. We're going right after the PT topics, aren't we?
Well, it is like a PT shop talk episode.
It is.
I mean, we could talk about other stuff. The Combine started this week. Not farm vehicles, but NFL, right?
I've watched none. I'm like, I'm like decompressing out of work mode. It's been a while. As you know, this is our time of year for annual reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do know
more travel. We're busy as heck on the patient care side, which is always awesome, but keeps you busy.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year for sure. February, March is tough. But I mean, I'm glad we do it now instead of November, December.
Yeah, there probably is no great time because when we used actually in hindsight, I'm kind of missing the old rolling way we did it. Where I'm not sure if you were with us yet, but we used to conduct annual reviews on or around within a 30-day window of the person's anniversary date.
Yeah, that's always when I started.
So it was a little harder to keep tabs on it, but at the same time, it was you didn't have this massive cluster of time like devoted to, setting these up, like procuring them and delivering them. In my case, it's just a lot more travel, which then narrows your time and your availability in the clinic, which is a headache that it creates in itself.
Yeah, I see both ways. I mean, it is good just to get in the mindset and hammer them all out, but
yeah,
there's other things, figuring out salaries and budgets and all that stuff that, that's good too, but it can be a load at once.
Yeah, that's why I just shut the old brain off.
Yeah.
Just don't invest a lot of time or effort into doing them.
Yeah, that's the trick. Shoot.
You're, yeah,
I've been worrying too much about it. Okay.
yeah. On a positive note, we went over, this could be a whole nother like kind of therapy leadership related topic, but like how we delivered the structure of the annual review and how much that's changed over the years. It's been such a positive change. Going away from like the arbitrary rating scale, like you used to rate yourself 1 through 5, and then your supervisor would rate 1 through 5, and it was just a little awkward, a little again arbitrary because it's like how do you, especially soft skills and even clinical skills, like who's
Well,
showing
yeah,
a 5?
yeah. It's not like your boss is watching you work with patients all day long, and
I'll watch you. Just
yeah. Is
like
that
a
why my
little
camera
baby,
is always on in the room and I had no
like an
idea?
yeah, like an old hawk. Just
All right.
caw-caw.
Oh, surprised I'm still working.
Well,
But anyways,
like
the
those,
combine's going on. So
yeah.
NDSU's got the
Who's blowing
receiver.
you away?
Well, Christian Watson, right? Receivers are today. So he hasn't run his 40 time yet, as I didn't check right before we popped on, but he had the 7th best broad jump since 99. So he's explosive. 38.5-inch vertical. So he's looking good so far.
Yeah.
That 40
Yeah.
times gonna
What's
40
his
times
official
gonna make him
height?
some money. 6'4" was his official height. 208. I don't have the I've set up another computer now so I can produce better. I have 2 computers now. Things are getting
Yeah.
serious in the studio.
I love it. Love it.
So I can pull up his measurables right now.
Has there been any legitimate combine freak come out of this thing yet?
Boy, I forget. Somebody ran like a 4.2 something today already.
What? Dang, give me a name.
I think
wanna
some of
know.
that is, I don't know, they call it time adjusted. I don't exactly know what that means.
Well,
yeah, I mean, we could sit here forever on this.
yeah, we probably better keep her moving, huh?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind, not 4.2. 4.32 was what it was. Calvin Austin was still pretty fast.
Yeah, unhitch the plow, you lazy bastard.
I know, like try harder, right?
Yeah. The old stories, they're great about the combine, like the old famous Dion one where I think that was a pro day because I don't think he ran at the combine. Maybe it was, but they showed up barefoot, ran, you hear different versions of it, whether he ran 4.2 barefoot, ran it in flip flops, just some crazy stories like that. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, it was a different world back when they were like hand timing times and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We were talking about, I was talking about this with my last patient of the day today. Who's impressive is Micah Parsons, rookie linebacker, edge rusher from the Cowboys from Penn State. Did you see him beat Tyreek Hill in that foot race back at the Pro Bowl?
I did see highlights of it. Yeah, dude's fast.
Yeah, he is. He was super, like he caught my attention immediately in that Sunday Night Football game against the Vikings, man. He was just all over the field and just dominant. And then he continued to do that all season long. Guy is just everywhere. And then to throw his name, in the ring and race Tyreek Hill, that's and beat him. Tyreek's been petitioning for like a rematch, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching that, I don't know if he gave it 100% effort.
Yeah,
I think he thought he was going to kind of blow him out of the water.
Yeah. I think 9 times out of 10, Tyreek beats him in like a 40 or a 50,
Yeah.
But pretty cool to see because Parsons is a hell of a lot bigger than Tyreek Hill.
Heck of a lot bigger. You're right. You're right. Yeah, so it'll be fun to see. NDSU's got 2 guys in the combine. So I always interested to see where they end up, even though I don't know. Small school guys. I don't know if the combine numbers matter that much. They're always going to get knocked for being small school guys. So we'll see. I mean, but Watson had a great Senior Bowl. So if his 40 times good, that's going to make him some money. I don't think the lineman, Cordell Volson, probably his combine's probably not going to affect him too much one way or another, unless it's absolutely horrible.
Mhm.
They've had some guys come in and do pretty poorly in the combine, and that hurt their stock. But
It's about time the Vikes got to draft one of these guys. Like Volson could fit. He could fit. I mean,
oh yeah,
outside edge rusher. You know, not he's not going to be. You're not going to burn your top first 2 rounds with him, but you know, somewhere down the
yeah,
chain.
Olsen's probably a 5'6", which
Yeah,
is fine.
be worth a pick and keep it
Yeah,
semi-local. I think that's
yeah.
a. You know, that's
In
a.
some ways, it's not a when sometimes there's no pressure. It's like show
Yeah,
up, play.
totally. If you're a low risk guy, like, and you know, it's easy to go to Adam Thielen because he was undrafted. But I mean, if you can find a gem like that, you know, fairly local individual, and then let's say they evolve and they develop within your system. I mean, from the business standpoint of professional football, they're going to sell a lot of merchandise for you.
Oh yeah,
And
local people like it.
yeah, I think Adam Thielen was the top selling jersey. Like, I mean, the majority of the last 7 years.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
like,
like look at Maurer with the Twins.
yeah, yeah,
There's
it's a
money
great
to be
story.
made.
People, you do love that. There's value to that piece to it. You know, that's why I said a couple of years back, I thought it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to see if we could, you know, when Cousins was being lukewarm, you'd be like, why not maybe shake the dice with Carson Wentz? You know, jury's out on him too. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. The Colts don't seem too high on him anymore, so that didn't take long.
no,
It's
no,
too bad.
I hope he can. Well, he's not exactly surrounded. I mean, you get rid of Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's not surrounded with a lot of receiver talent there.
No, no. It'd be interesting to see if he had good receivers, what he would look like. He's never really had a good receiver, so
Yeah. Well, yeah, he had that 1 year with Alshon Jeffrey in Philly.
yep.
You know, he basically should have locked up the MVP that year, but injuries
Yeah, it's
need.
just I don't know. I don't know him personally. You just hear the stories, but I don't know. Seems like he's got a mental game issue going on. I don't know. He
He does some foolish stuff.
Yeah, he does some weird
can't,
stuff, and
can't defend that. Yeah.
there's definitely some locker room chatter and
Yeah.
things. I remember his first couple years in Philly. He's buying shotguns for his linemen, taking these guys out for meals, bringing guys up to Fargo to practice.
Yeah.
He's getting kids on the team baptized and stuff, and he got hurt, and then he's just they brought Jalen Hurts in, and since then it's always been like, he's not great in the locker room, and the guys rubs people the wrong way, and it's like, man, what a
Yeah.
change.
That's weird. I don't, and who knows? Maybe he has had some psychological changes because, he was leading that team and he was a legit MVP candidate till that knee injury. And then you go down and he's probably wrestled with what Nick Foles was able to do, and run the table, win that championship, and you're watching from the bench. I mean, that's got to mess with anybody. But that's where the elite of the elite kind of step up and show them.
Yeah, the depression's a heck of a thing, and it's still one of those things you probably don't talk about much, right? Starting quarterback in the NFL, what do you have to be depressed about?
Yeah.
But, come from a
different expectations, though.
Yeah, we come from a very stoic area, so it's not like, probably stands out, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he's down in the dumps or whatever. Like it's just, but his attitudes and his behaviors have changed. It's those things that people should identify, but.
Well, I think he's probably ready for a fresh coat of paint. Get with you are a product of your surroundings too. So get him in a system with at least a couple good receivers, guys you can get the ball to. And then if you can't make it happen, then you can't make it happen. Maybe it's time to go become a backup or whatever.
And I thought Indy was going to be the place. They were a decent team with Phillip the year before. They lost some pieces and injury bugs hit him pretty hard, and he obviously didn't have much time there to get used to the system. Those first 5-6 games were pretty brutal for him.
But. I mean, that's right. I mean, they dug themselves out of a hole really nicely. But
it would be nice to give him a year in the system, but
it's
not how the NFL works.
Still happen too.
Yeah, it's not over, but their owner seems to be pretty frustrated with the vaccination thing and the way the season ended.
Yeah, that was such a mess. And now today they're like they all agreed to like dissolve all their COVID protocols. But if you go back though, it's not like they were it's not like they had a terrible season. I mean, going into that final game, they were considered by many. I think I even said it on our podcast, like one of the hottest teams in the NFL, one of the most dangerous playoff teams. And when it came down to it, their defense didn't show up at all in Jacksonville, and they got blown out. With everything.
It's just such a sour way to end your season,
Yeah. And then they went from being that dark horse because they've been on such a tear, and then you're out. It's kind of like the Dolphins had a similar run like that, if you remember, but they were beaten up on really terrible teams.
Yeah.
But I think they started what were they, like 1-7 or 1-8, and then they won like 7 in a row, and everybody's high on them. And then all of a sudden they lose to Tennessee, and you're like, oh yeah, you're done.
Yeah. It was a fun NFL season though, because of that stuff, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting season. We'll see how it pans out. I'm excited for the combine because, not gonna lie, not a huge basketball guy, except March Madness is exciting, but missing sports right now. We probably won't get baseball. So even though I'm not a baseball guy, but it's something to talk about.
When I get into my bracket, I usually start caring if I get past the first weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm if I'm out of like the top 5 after the first weekend, it's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah, I always do like 2 ESPN brackets. I do my bracket, which is based on my heart and my research. And then I always compare that just to the seed. I just pick the top seeds of every game. I lose to that thing every year. Yeah, so I'm not a great basketball mind.
We should do a bracket for our private practice leadership group.
I'm into it. We do clinic brackets all the time, so copy, cut, and paste.
To you? What do you want to throw into the kitty?
I don't know. Maybe a PAC Eagle membership to the winner.
That's inside.
Yeah,
inside. There's only one guy.
I won't name names. There's only one eagle around here.
Yep.
Oh, did you hear that, listeners?
Yes, I have sound effects for days. I did the same caca for my watching you like a hawk reference too.
Yeah, your soundboard needs more buttons.
That's what I should have. Invest in a big soundboard.
Yeah, as we talk about getting into performers, I've been listening to some music. You see behind me, I have a 300 disc CD changer.
Sweet.
Not sweet, right? I decided to bust it out because I was like, oh, I should fire this thing up. I haven't listened to a CD since high school, probably. Turned it on, it didn't work, which was frustrating. So I decided.
What brand is it?
Sony. But I decided I was going to tear it apart and fix it. Are you an electronics guy? Are you a solderer?
No,
me neither.
No.
But I watched the YouTube video, so that made me an expert on it. And man, I took that thing apart. I didn't lose a single piece. I found a pulley that was not working and I fixed it. I felt like, and I don't have like, is there a famous computer engineer I was trying to compare myself to?
Matthew Broderick in War Games.
Yeah, I can. That's probably better. I came up with John Connor.
John Connor, huh?
Yeah, he's building Terminators, right?
He did hack. No, he hacked the ATM in Terminator too. Yeah,
right. He's like a computer guy. So anyway, I felt just like Matthew Broderick. Put that sucker back together, all the pieces in place, turned her on. Didn't work at all.
You suck.
Yeah, I suck. Electronics aren't my thing. But I did find my Faith No More CD in there though. It was jammed in there. So
it's it. What is it?
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah. I recently re-downloaded that album.
It's a good album.
Yeah, it is. The real thing. That guy could jam for a while.
Yeah, he had a cool voice.
I had a buddy who had one of those massive disc changers too. Actually, one of my other buddies I'm thinking of, he had the 6 disc changer in the trunk of the car. Did you ever have that?
I did not. So we had a buddy that had one though.
Totally thinking talk about a timestamp.
Mm-hmm.
Like go back to the mid 90s, and that was just legit among all legitness. Hey, you can put
listen,
6 in a row back
CDs.
there. Yeah. And now you're like, how archaic.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we got a road trip to Harvey for a game. What 6 discs you boys want? Right? Let's
Damn
plan
Hornets.
even a gorilla can't beat a hornet, man. They had the stupid big gorilla outside their town.
Dang, Harvey was our big football rival.
Mm-hmm. They had a good run there for a while.
Yeah.
What was I forget their coach's name, but his brother was the coach of Velva, and they played each other like 6 years in a row in the championships.
I don't know if it was quite that. That was like my era, but up in the Northwest, football wise, it came down to Velva and Stanley, like just about every year. Stanley was legit. Stanley beat us for the state championship in '99, and still stings to this day.
Oh, you lost to us in a state championship as well?
Yeah, I just didn't want a Bigfoot all over your story when you were telling it. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
How did it feel?
Yeah. Interesting. I think it took a while to set in. I think we were just happy to be there. That was my senior year, and I can remember at halftime it was 6-6, because you remember North Dakota football, people can't make field goals even if you're in the Fargo Dome. So keep that in mind. So
hey, we kicked all kinds of field goals in 9-man football, man.
No, oh, you played 9-man.
You're right. We had a lot of field to work with.
That's why you're so fast. Anyhow, so it's 6-6 at halftime. And I remember our offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, Greg Holgels, just rawing us up in the locker room. And we were to be at 6-6 with that Stanley team. Well, we were primarily just happy to be there. I think that was the overall morale, and I think the tone. And I'm guessing if my friends are being honest with themselves, they'd say the same thing, right? Well, then by midway through the third quarter, it's 12-12, and we have the ball. And friend Tyler Lura, shout out to Tyler Lura. I think he's living out in Montana, on that Bozeman area. Keeps playing wide receiver for us, goes deep, catches a bomb, and is going in for the go-ahead touchdown. And it gets punched out right at the 1-yard line, literally at the 1, rolls through, its touchback for Stanley. And at that moment, where you're looking up, going up minimum like 18-12, right? And it just, you could feel like we were just flattened. It just sucked it out of us. The very next play, spotted at the 20, they bust out an 80-yard touchdown run. Like they're running inside trap stuff just like us. Took it house, and at that, the route was on. It went, I think we finished 32-12.
Ooh. Yeah.
But they were a much better team than us at that time. They had some guy. They had a guy named Blair Heineck, I think. That was his name. He went on. He was getting offers supposedly from like Notre Dame, right? I mean, those are the things that the stories that come out. Like somebody, they're reaching out to him or they're recruiting him. I think he ended up going to your true alma mater, the Suck, and played up there.
Yeah, we all make bad decisions. It's okay.
Well, yeah, that was my moment in the Fargo Dome.
Was Carrington a big like state championship game team? Did you guys go to the championship quite a bit?
No, we were a playoff team. We were contenders every year. Like my junior year, we were ranked number 2 in state most of the time, behind I want to say Velva.
Okay.
I want to say they were numero uno, but we got upset by Thompson in the quarterfinals at home.
No, Thompson's like a 9-man powerhouse now.
Are they? Yeah, they were big. They were big. They were big up front, and they passed the ball a lot. I remember that.
Yeah, it's crazy how the state changed. Like when I was in high school, I remember Cavalier was just monster, like AA team, and I think Cavalier's 9-man now. It's weird.
No way.
I'm pretty sure. I'll produce. You talk.
Well, no, because you're kind of in the same demo as my younger brother, and we had to move up to AA for a couple of years based on enrollments, and Cavalier did give us the spanking.
Yeah, I believe they were like undefeated for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they per my producing, it looked like they were in the 9-man state championship game for the third year in a row this last year. So
they're kind of just a football dynasty up there. If they're maintaining it that long. Yeah.
But still, they go from AA to 9-man. The mighty have fallen.
Yeah. Back in the day, we were perennial, like 1 or 2 in our region. I mean, pretty much every year. Pretty consistent. Great coach. Marty Holtcoulter was our head football coach at the time. Had a good track record. A great way of developing players too. Like we rotated a lot. So as you moved up, that was the sting of it. When you're young, you got some experience, and he was plugging you in, rotating you in. But as you got older, you got to be like a junior, senior, and you're blowing out a team. You're like blowing out Enderlin like 35-0. You're by the second quarter, you're like sitting the rest of the game. Which is I do still feel this right thing. If you want to have a more of a legacy approach to your coaching and developing younger talent, you got to do that. You can't just keep trouncing guys. Keep your players in. So we would do that.
Fun even.
No, it kind of yeah. I mean, it's fun in the moment when you're scoring, right? You still have that feeling, but afterwards you kind of like, okay, what does this really matter? Because we got Lamore is looming, right? Or Harvey's down the road. And this is, doesn't really matter.
I had a situation my senior year. We were undefeated. I think going into the last game of the year was our rival Leeds, and they weren't great. So and they had done some questionable things in the previous years when they were better than us. So the Lions, we took it to them pretty hard. And I was the center. And
okay. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, it's like 36-0 at the end of the first quarter. So all the starters go out. Well, our backup center the day before gets bit in the face by a bee. So his whole face is swollen, so he can't play. Our third string center comes down with the flu the day of the game. So at 9-man, you don't have like a ton of guys, and I was literally the only guy that knew how to snap a football. So I had to play the entire game. Like we ended up winning like 54-0 or something like that. Probably have the plaque up here somewhere. It was terrible. I had zero joy in that game. We would huddle up, and by the end, it's like 8th and 9th graders. So I'm like a head height taller than everybody on the field. Probably 50 pounds heavier than everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm just shoving these kids down and picking them back up. Like, I'm so sorry. I have to keep playing. Yeah. And I would look to the sidelines. All the other starters were literally just in their shorts eating burgers and like Skittles and laughing at me. Yeah. Because we were good, but we had a pretty relaxed work environment, I would say. So when you were out, it was Skittle time, baby.
Not us. You had to be standing. Marty's way was you're going to be standing. You're going to keep your helmet on the whole game, and you're going to cheer on your teammates. You're going to encourage those younger guys. So that was kind of
our style.
Yeah. This is Well, look at us. Right?
Yeah. Do you feel like that style is carried over into your management now? You manage like Marty coaches? I can't even.
You can't hear it?
It's probably better that I can't. I think we have to pay for that then.
Glory days.
Yeah. Don't play that too long. YouTube will hammer me for that.
Yeah, they'll be like,
yeah, copyright infringement.
Have you paid Bruce Springsteen like 90 cents for this song?
I mean, we might get copyright infringement for your Faith No More cover earlier.
Yeah.
That might hit the robots. It was too spot on.
Yeah. Well, is this our segue into impressions?
No, I hope
it stops with Faith No More.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. All right.
My throat's I'm getting ready to do my Louis Armstrong, but I still don't know if it's just offensive or good. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I'm gonna sharpen up my Michael McDonald, and maybe by the end of the pod, I'll break into it a little bit. That's what we have to do. We have to for our top 5, we have to do a little snip of every performer.
Oh God, that would have maybe changed my
Let's
top
have some
5.
We better move fast. We better get to it.
All right, let's move on to the main topic for today. Clinical internship experiences. I'll let you start, Nick. How many did you guys have over there with the Yotes? Yep, 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 yep.
Yep, 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 yep.
I'm learning.
Down in USD, we had 5 total.
Whoa.
The way it was structured was we'd have one that was positioned in the summer after your first year. And that was really cool, really unique. I look back on it, and it was kind of such an opportunity to show you how much you didn't know yet.
How long was it?
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
It's a good time.
I did mine down in Rock Rapids, Iowa, at Sanford Hospital. It was
so
nice.
Acute care?
No, rural general, outpatient, inpatient, even maybe I believe there's long-term care there as well. So got a little bit of everything. And the funny thing about that one is the way it was positioned structurally or chronologically in the curriculum is that it came right after differential diagnosis. And I spent, like, everybody who came in with periscapular pain, you're like, oh, better check their liver out, better see if their kidney function's doing fine, you know. And I think my CI was like, pump the brakes, Nick. They got shoulder impingement. Yeah. So that was your first year. You went back, did your second year, which included a bunch of one-day clinicals in different spots every Wednesday. That was pretty cool. And then we finished year 3. We had 4 8-week-long internships in year 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was the total in the curriculum. Yes.
So you ended on 4 clinicals?
Yes, we did, Casey.
So your whole last 2 semesters were clinicals?
Correct.
Okay. I know. Yeah. I think UND's gone to that now too. Just power through at the end.
In hindsight, I think it's a successful approach. We came back at winter break to present our research. We all had to do research work, right? And we had to present our research study for our first 2 years of school. And then we did a board preparation class, got our score builders book, and then hit the road for our final 2 in that last semester.
Okay. So broke it up a little bit with some board prep, huh?
Yeah. If I have any of my fellow classmates, any fellow Yodi alums can fact check me on that one. That's just how I recall it being. I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
Now, did young, 22, 23-year-old Nick Doling on that first 6-weeker, did you just kick them doors in?
Well,
pretty
funny
humble.
Thing was that Nick Doling was 25.
Oh,
yeah.
I forget what your timeline looked like.
I'm a non-trad. We even devoted a whole episode.
I know. I should go back and listen, like it, subscribe it. They're good on a second listen.
Yeah, maybe even a third.
Sometimes they're similar to McGruber. They'll only get better with time.
Yeah. I am the McGruber of Big Stone Therapy.
Anyway, so was 25-year-old Nick Doling blowing doors off? Or did you come in pretty humble?
I think I was. I mean, people would probably argue with me. I mean, deep down, I think we all struggle with confidence no matter what.
Oh, imposter syndrome, man. That's a real deal.
Yeah. As we get down there to humbling moments and stuff, as we alternate, because I want to hear more about UND's curriculum.
Ooh.
You know. But I think but I did feel as though I connected with patients. I felt like I had that strength right away. I felt like I had I've been blessed with pretty solid memory and ability to retain at least pertinent and sometimes not so pertinent information all on our top 5s. And that had really put me in a position where I felt by the time I was doing, internships, like you realize you're being graded, you're being on the scale score of, whether you're entry level or not. But at the same time, I just really felt like I was capable, And I've made a little joke when Jeremy was on here, but if I'm being real, I set one goal for myself at USD, really one goal, because, graduating is a foregone conclusion. Passing your boards should be a foregone conclusion that you should be
Yeah, right. That
providing
should
for
just
your
be
family.
day-to-day whirlwind.
It should be. It should be. But like a legit goal that I had, there was one award that when I was interviewing, they had these plaques on the wall, and it was Student Clinician of the Year, and that's the one I wanted. And I was really blessed when I graduated to be awarded that one.
What was the criteria, and who
was-
voted on that?
It was based on, well, I believe the instructors determined it based on the cumulative scores of all your CIs, your performance on your internships.
Because back in your day / my day, it was just a line that they put a mark on. Is that right? Did you guys use CPI back then?
Funny freaking story. We transitioned to the computer-based version fairly early.
Okay.
And I remember being, and you talk about kind of humble, not humble. There was it doesn't matter where, I'm not going to say where, but he wasn't my CI. He was like the manager, the rehab director of this facility I was at. And he sits me down at like the midterm, gives me like the, how's it going? You know, you seem really sharp, really cool to know you. By the way, we have these, these openings here, right? Kind of like the recruitment chain. And I'm like, okay, very cool, really far from home. But he goes, gosh, we take students from all over the country. We get tons from USC that come here. We get some from Creighton and really well-established universities, really prestigious schools. And here you are from South Dakota pushing the computerized version of it. You're the first student to do that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
I try not to wear too many chips on my shoulder, but that one was like, dude, and he was razzing me all the time about my accent, from Dakota.
Oh,
how many
he was one of those guys, huh?
Yeah, it's basically as we talk about like where I went, I guess it would be easy to figure out which rotation that was.
You can burn that bridge. That guy's got no chance of affecting your life anymore.
Yeah, that's true. It's just not cool to say shit on somebody when they're so far away.
You think he listens?
15 years later. Well, even if you don't, it's just a intellectually dishonest way to approach life, I think. But so that was that. I think getting back on track. So that first one was in Rock Rapids, Iowa. Get through the second year. I get to year 3. I started out in Seattle, Washington, with Therapeutic Associates Inc., outpatient orthopedics. Really awesome experience, top-notch CI there. Nicole Smith was my CI. I don't know if that's still her name. I think that was her main name. Really fantastic. Then I went to Prairie Rehab in Sioux Falls for they were like back-to-back ortho outpatient rotations, and had a good base of had some different experiences, different CIs. Lori, God, I can't remember her last name. I feel terrible. Her name was Lori. She was my CI. Really sharp, fun gal. Different pace, right? You do realize, like, after experiencing some different individuals, different therapists, different patients, out in even the West Coast versus Midwest, we just operate a little different pace. There's certainly polite people out there. That was awesome. It's not even that. It's just, I think everybody's more patient, more Prairie Rehab than out of TAI. Year 3, I was back in Carrington, home of the Cardinals. Kyle Smith.
Oh, I don't know
Smith
what
was my
sounds like.
Cardinals. Tweet, tweet, tweet.
Oh, that's adorable.
Tweet, tweet, tweet. Yeah. So that was kicking off in January, February of my 3rd year. Brutally cold. I think it hit like 57 below one day when we were there. Pretty positive, actually. It's like a record at the time. And went from there to my final one, which was Urban Acute in Rancho Mirage, California, at the Eisenhower Medical Center. And that was a very, very busy place, but cool experience. I had no interest at all in Urban Acute, but ended up really enjoying my time out there.
Yeah, what brought you out there?
Family friend. Stayed with a gal named Kim. really, she's like a friend of my wife's parents, and just put me up. She had this extra spare room, and it was a pretty slick deal. So, and she'd worked for the Eisenhower Medical Center at the time, so she kind of had a little bit of an in with that. I just wanted different experiences. I wanted to, I guess I looked at that. I figured I went from feeling I travel, like move away distance wise for PT school, and marrying Michelle, I was like, well, maybe I should use my clinicals instead to travel. And that was what I did. And I don't regret that at all, because it's a great life experience. Meet amazing people. Had one of the funnest dudes to ever work with. I wish I worked with this guy to this day. His name was Bob. He was awesome Filipino American OT. He was just a ball of muscle. And we did a lot of co-treating with post-op acutes, a lot of joints, a lot of total joints. But man, we had a blast. Everybody was just at, like, again, a different speed, but it was like a positive, fun vibe, and I was trying to lose my accent when I was out there, talking a little faster, a little bit more SoCal.
Oh,
like,
a little surfer in you, huh?
Come on, dude, let's go down to Fat Burrito. Let's go eat Fat Burrito. You're like, what are you even saying? Let's slow it down a little bit.
That is too fast. I'm gonna have to slow that down in post. I don't think anybody could have understood that.
Yeah, back then, Brock Lesnar had just transitioned into MMA, and Bob was like this big MMA dude. Did some training, I think, at some kickboxing academy out there, and it's just all into it. And I was too, so we hit it off that way. And he'd always talk about these goddamn bunch of big Vikings from up in the Dakotas. I'm like, well, kind of.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Not totally.
Yeah, so I had 4 clinicals at UND. We do, at that time, like I said, I think they've transitioned more to that end of last 2 semesters, but in my time, the first 2 happened after your first 3 semesters, including summer. So it would have been the fall of your second year.
Yeah.
You do 2 9s. You have to do an outpatient, and you had to do an acute care. So you didn't really get a whole lot of options. It had to be those 2. So I did my first one in Fargo, Orthopedic Associates, which surprisingly was a physician-owned practice, but UND allowed students to go there, which is fine. I had a great experience there. Denise Croakey was my CI.
We know her.
Yeah, I ended up also spending Fridays with her husband, Mike Croakey, who I now work with. So that all panned out very well for me in the end, but it took about 6 years for us to reconnect. Well, 8 years for us to reconnect after that, but
Cool.
There's some value sometimes in doing those clinicals in places you want to work. My second clinical was acute care in Bismarck. Mark Johnson was my CI at the time. Our focus was ortho for the first 4 weeks, so post-ops, and then the last 4 weeks was just general med. And then our last 2 clinicals are in that last semester. Again, 2 9s. I did neuro in the Banner Good Samaritan Center in Phoenix,
nice.
Arizona, downtown. Definitely that was a shocker. They're like, make sure you don't have anything in your car, because they will steal your 6-disc CD changer if they have a chance. Son. Right? They didn't even care that 2 of those CDs were Aqua and Chumbawamba.
Whether you had some Nelly in there or not, didn't matter.
Yeah. You didn't have to be hot and her. They would have taken it anyways.
What if you had Air Force Ones in there?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't have that kind of money. And then my last one was back in Fargo at the schools, at the Fargo Public Schools, pediatrics.
Oh, no kidding. How long did you do that peds one?
It was 9 weeks, the longest 9 weeks of my life, if I'm going to be honest.
God bless you, man.
Yeah, well, I took my thought process was, I am a youngest child. I have 0 experience with children. I thought I would like children. But I also said I better try this out before I rule it out.
Now you hate children.
Yeah, can't stand them. Yeah, there's really it comes down to 2 and they're pushing the limit most of the time. So but I'm glad I did it because I found out pediatric wasn't for me. It just was not, didn't fit my personality, didn't fit my herding cats. That's just not for me. The pace was, it was odd because you didn't do daily notes or anything. So there was almost no accountability until you had like parent teacher conferences. And then you'd have to write like a 3-page report on their kid. You're like, we play games all day. You'd do the whatever, the pediatric assessments where they run and toss balls and you'd grade them, and once a year you compare them. But yeah, it wasn't for me. And we can get it more into that as I get into humbling moments.
Yeah.
But so it was a good experience though. I did take something away from all of them. They were all really good experiences. I had a lot of good CIs.
Sorry, I'm really phlegmy today. I'm apologizing. I'm like,
that's okay.
Apologize to the listeners.
I'm a little under the weather. Maybe it makes me sound cooler. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you're always cool. Always cool.
My CI when I was in Phoenix, he was cool. His name was Mark Van Dam. That was cool. Like he has sweet last name.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's actually he was a really well-known therapist. So it was fun to work with him.
Cool. And was he related to Jean-Claude?
Oddly enough, I never asked. I was too afraid.
Another question for another time.
Yeah, I've always thought I should go back and visit. It was a good experience. I had a great time there. We used to go jog over our lunch every day through the mean streets of downtown Phoenix.
That's cool, man. Like when I was in Carrington, Kyle Smith he just got into this venture with like a pharmacist and another MD back home, and they built a gym and opened it up. So our structure, we would work like from 8 to like 11:30, 11 maybe noon. Then we go to the gym. So it's Carrington, so you don't have to travel very far, but it's quick turnaround time.
Yeah.
Go work out for like an hour and then come back and work till like 5:30. So it's kind of a cool vibe back then. I really dug that split. Yeah, he was passionate. Kyle was always passionate about weight training and stuff like that. Obviously, over the gym. So.
Yeah, it was a nice break to your day.
Yeah,
I was in a lot better shape then, so I could go run for half an hour and not like just be gross all afternoon. So
yeah, I still rinsed off.
Well, like I did like a quick sink shower typically, but then like I wasn't like huffing and puffing and tired all afternoon because I was in shape. I feel like now if I worked out over lunch, I'd be like, ugh.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's like a different stink when we get older.
Yeah, there's like an old man must. I feel like that would carry with me all afternoon.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're moving on. So we talk about we've mentioned it a little bit. So well, first off, let's cleanse the palate. What were humbling moments for you as a student? Did you have any? Again, you were blowing doors off. We already talked about that.
Yeah, right.
25, you knew how life worked.
No, I think this was a very easy one for me to identify. And it goes back to my, I think it was about week 3 or 4 in Seattle. And, I'm like half the country away from my wife. And, I'm naming that because I think that you have personal stressors that just add to your situation, right? And I had really high expectations for myself, obviously, like I think we all do. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I think it's fair to say that my instructor was incredibly driven, incredibly motivated, like on this track, like they were big into NIAP at the time as far as their orthopedic manual certification. Mm-hmm. So she's like going down that track, also trying to be a director within the company and like working her way up. And we just had she kind of sat me down and was quizzing me on some cranial nerves. And I didn't handle it well. I kind of barked back and still regret it. It's something I regret. I felt like that there was different things going on. Like every time we practiced we were really big into practicing these manual techniques. And like they had an aide out there who's trying to get into PT school. and she would be the practice dummy. And I mean, for the life, a lot of stuff goes through your head. And I remember thinking for the life of me, yeah, I swear every time I try to do like a grade 4, grade 3, grade 4, a whip, anything like that. And this guy was like, no, that's not right. Doesn't feel right. Doesn't, and I'm like, oh, like feel like I'm doing, just putting all this pressure on myself. And so she kind of just gave me to come to Jesus. And she's like, you need to like, not, I can't remember exactly how she put it, but basically like relax a little bit, right?
Mm.
Like you don't have to be so intense and so I don't know, so carry that weight with you and try your best to be perfect and all that stuff. And it was some of the best advice I got. It kind of took a lot of the pressure out the rest of the rotation, but it was really humbling. It was like a confluence of these different events and being away, being away from like my best friend and really being away from many of my other classmates too. I mean, really, like you create those friendships, right? And you create those networks and even like back then, I think texting was kind of just becoming a thing. So you could shoot some text, but still like not the same, right? I think our generation grew up differently. So you
probably had to pay 10 cents per text back then.
You're probably right. I think it was 5 or 10 cents. So I mean, it was a good learning experience, and it made, and when I've retold this story a couple times to other PT students or other PTs, I say the biggest blessing was that it made every single rotation after that easy. It was like compared to those expectations and the speed and that focus on the attention to detail with the orthopedics and manual care, everything after that was easy. So that was mine. How about you?
Yeah, I had so many humbling moments. I would say even just, that first eval, I think is a little humbling, for students that listen to this, like, boy, I rolled into that thing, I had my list, like in PT school, we had a mnemonic. I don't even remember it. That was like the perfect flow, special tests and dermatomes and myotomes. And I had all that stuff remembered. I thought it was going to be so easy.
Yeah.
I walk into this room and, I believe it was knee pain. I don't remember that part offhand, but it's like, all right, tell me a little bit about what's going on. And this guy starts to go into this story very graphically about having sexual relations with this lady. Pretty decently graphic in front of my CI, and I'm trying to hold it together. And then he's like, and then her sister came in and she starts yelling and like she's throwing blankets and throwing stuff at me. I fall off the bed, my partner falls on top of me. My knee's been killing me since, like, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Like,
you shy boy.
Yeah, right.
Shymatic kid.
Mid North Dakota. This was really graphic. And I'm just staring at this guy because I'm like, I had this whole thing prepared for you, sir, and you have destroyed it for me. And then he gets up and he goes, oh no, I'm just kidding. I twisted it like lifting something the other day. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, let's reset. Like, that was humbling, just from the fact of like, this is the real world. People are gonna mess with you. Situations are not textbook situations. Like, you need to be a little more adaptable, because I was a very good book kid. Like, I could study a book and kind of like you said, great memory. Like, I'd read it once and memorize it, but like, that's obviously not in the book. So that was a little humbling for me. And then I think just, based on doing like outpatient ortho, acute care, neuro, pediatrics, it was just, I felt like it was always humbling because you'd feel like you were getting comfortable and you knew something, and then you just came into this new environment and you're like, oh, man, I feel like everything I knew isn't like that effective anymore, or isn't what my CI is looking for anymore. Because again, back then it was very guru and algorithm based, and there was neuro was you followed this system, and ortho was you followed these systems, and when it didn't match up with your CIs, it was frustrating. because you learn stuff in school and then you go out with your CIs and they didn't believe what you were taught, or which is funny now.
A couple of one
'cause,
days were like
now I'm thinking of the stuff where I was like, oh, I can't believe my CI doesn't know about muscle energy techniques for pelvic rotation. What a fool. And now I'm sitting there and students will be like, why don't we do a muscle energy for their pelvic rotation? And I'm like, because the research doesn't support it at all. And like, so it's funny to go back and look at those humbling situations. But yeah, I think just everything up to that point, I used to just pride myself in my studiousness and being prepared. And you couldn't be prepared. There was so much stuff out there. It all humbled me, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
To this day, therapy humbles me. When I teach, I still get humbled by kids. Kids come up with cool stuff all the time and they ask great questions. And even now I go, you know what? I actually don't know the answer to that. There's still information in my brain that I take for granted because I was told it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
I think every time you get a patient who's not responding as quickly as you or they would like, I mean, that's humble.
Mm-hmm. But I will say I probably felt more humbled when I first started as a PT than I did as a student, but that's probably discussion for a different time. I guess I always, as a student, you always felt like, well, I just need to figure out my CI and do what I think my CI wants. And then in the back of my mind, I was always like, I would do this differently, but I was timid.
Really?
Yeah.
I never had that approach. I never felt like I had to model that particular person,
Yeah, and and you shouldn't. I think for now, me as a CI, I encourage my students to question everything I do.
They should.
They should. Yeah. Right. We already talked about it. It's questionable tactics I use. But yeah, I sometimes I wish I was more forthcoming that way. I'm a people pleaser, so I rolled into those things just trying to do whatever I thought my CI would think was the best thing in that moment. And I, and then in the back of my mind, like I said, man, when I'm my own practitioner, I'm just going to rock this thing out because, there's stuff they don't understand and they're not doing, and I can't believe it. And it didn't work when I was on my own right away either. So
yeah, that's
humble.
The imposter syndrome right there. I think every new grad goes through imposter syndrome. Not every, I shouldn't say the majority of them, because there's takes a little time to get comfortable enough to let people in that you don't know everything, and you certainly have a lot of questions, and heaven forbid you let somebody know that your patient's not progressing at the accelerated rate that you're hoping.
Yeah, not everybody gets better. That's hard to come to terms with sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so that's kind of like the humbling side, I guess. Finishing on a positive note, biggest light bulb moments or aha moments that gave you confidence. It's kind of like our transition out.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like I said, coming out of the TII one, which was a fantastic opportunity, everything was much easier after that. I just felt like I had a lot more confidence and felt like I'd, developed a lot more. The real wake up, my very first day in Carrington, it was like we had poor weather, and Kyle had a therapist call in sick, and he's like, I've never done this before. And he's like, we knew each other from when I was in high school and shadowing and staying in touch. And he's like, just, you've had a great, it was like the morning went fine. And he's like, this afternoon, can you do 3 evals?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep. Like, and that's the way I was, I've always kind of been wired. Like, when in doubt, act as though you do. Right.
Yep.
And
fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, I do think there's some value in that, because most of the time you get going and you're like, wait a second, I do know this shit.
Yeah. It's never as bad as you think.
And, and to have him put that type of trust in me, like day one, that this guy's not going to, because he owns that practice. And it's like, this kid's not going to come in and like, sully my reputation and drag it down. That just gave me all the confidence in the world. And we were doing the funny end to that piece was
all 3 of them died.
No.
Okay.
We were doing like dictation at the time, and like 2 days later, it comes back from the transcriptionist, and he's reviewing it like a good CI, ready to co-sign it. He's like, "Hey Nick, I don't know how to ask this, but you guys are taught how to write goals in school, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What was? Did I write poor ones?" He goes, "You didn't write any goals for any of the patients." And I'm like, "Oh." So we actually laughed quite a bit over that one, and went back and redictated up, did addendums, and created a couple long-term, couple short-term goals for each patient. But that was pretty funny, just jumping into the deep end of the water and running.
Forget a few things.
Yeah, and being able to laugh at yourself, and he was just a fantastic CI, because he didn't make them, like, he could have made me feel like a total idiot, right? But instead he use it as an opportunity. He's like, "I know, like, we're just going to laugh this thing off. You go ahead, go off in the corner, dictate them up, and we'll be fine."
Yeah, I just hear too many horror stories from students about CIs that just belittle their students. It's frustrating
Really?
to me. Yeah,
Really?
like, "Oh, I can't believe you don't know this," or "I can't believe you do that," or "Boy, your skills are really poor." Like, and it's
God,
it's
that
frustrating.
sucks.
I know. Like,
I mean,
that's not productive at all.
I was meeting with a third-year student today, who was interested in one of our opportunities. So we met and talked over quite a bit. And his CI is Ryan Landberg, who was a student of mine, like, way back in the day. And I got to give a little, just behind the curtains peek, something I don't normally do, but just the kid's on his way out, but just let him know, "Hey, you got a great guy teaching you." And I look back, and the way I described it, I said, "I think I was a tough CI, right? I was tough one, please, And I knew that Ryan was interested in moving back to Marshall, so it was kind of like a de facto
8-week job interview,
right?
Yeah.
But then when I hear different things, I'm like, wait, maybe I was soft, and then I know people that are softer than me, and it's a delicate balance. Like, you got to be able to instill some confidence. But I did have one student one time, and this goes to the fragility of some people too. I think that's questionable. I think it's fair to question that. Some people are just more fragile, ego-wise, and they can't handle it. And I had one gal who, when I'd quiz her, she would tell me, "Oh, we haven't been taught that yet. We haven't been taught that yet." And then later on, be like, "Oh yeah, we were." It's just, she just didn't handle that piece right.
Yeah, that's not a great way to do it.
And it's a long, detailed story, but basically, like, kind of caught her in a little bit of a fib to me when we were talking about mulligan stuff. And it was like, come on now, like, it's like, there's just better way. Like, you don't have, again, going back to me, like, I found out the hard way. I didn't have to be perfect, right? Neither did she. And you can let your guard down, be vulnerable a little bit, and ask for that guidance, or ask for that help, or just say, "Hey, I'm not remembering right now. Give me a second, go look it up." Right?
Yeah, I prefer that to we haven't been taught it, or we never covered that. Like, I know you guys do.
That's exactly what had happened. And that's exactly what had happened. And I knew that it was a Scholastica student. I knew Rick Kroll was one of their professors, and he did a lot of stuff he actually taught a mulligan course that I went to. And so at one point, I'm like, I'm doing MWMs or snags on somebody. And I'm just talking her through it and kind of quizzing her. And she just like, "Oh, we haven't had that yet." She's like a third year.
Yeah, that's weird. When else are you going to have it at this point?
And literally, it was like a week later, and she's we're having lunch, and she's having a conversation. There's like another therapist in there, and we're talking mulligan stuff, because we went to this mulligan class together. And she's all like, "Oh yeah, I've had that." And I'm like, "I thought you told me the other day you haven't." And she just like gave me the deer in the headlights, like the, "Oh crap, you remember that?" I can't be blessed with a pretty decent memory. And then she's like, "Oh, I never said I didn't have it." And I'm like, I'm like, we'll talk later. Like,
students, I love.
And then she eventually came back and apologized. It was like, come on, like, just stop it. Just stop it.
It's one of my joys as a PT is taking students.
Well, you take more than like anybody I know.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know. It's energizing to me. And I've always had good ones. I think yeah, just giving them the ability to succeed. I think that's powerful. And we've had, obviously, some of them have been successful. So I must not be terrible at my job. Most of them still talk to me. We did have one student just get up and leave, never come back. That was weird. Wasn't technically mine. It was mine, but I gave her to somebody else because I ended up having 3 students at once by whoopsie doodles. So yeah, that wasn't a bad experience. Humbling moment for her, I assume. But yeah, humbling moment or light bulb moment for me.
Confidence booster for you.
Yeah, confidence booster for me. I think, and maybe not a confidence booster, but a light bulb moment. We'll go with that. Yep. Was in my second clinical when I was working acute care. They had just started to do. They had an outpatient attached to the hospital, but they were kind of a separate beast. But they had just started having the outpatient clinic cover weekends, so they would rotate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the outpatient clinic maybe had 5 or 6 therapists that would rotate. Well, as a student, they would let us work on the weekends if we wanted to finish our clinical faster.
Okay.
So if I worked 8 weekends, I could be done a week early, and then I'd just have a week to do whatever I wanted. So I had nothing else going on, so I worked every weekend. Mm-hmm. So the first weekend we did it, my CI wasn't working, but his CI, when he was a student, was like the director of the outpatient. So kudos to him. He was the first guy to do it. Okay. He stepped up to the plate and he said, I'll be the first guy to cover a weekend.
Team guy, team move.
Team leader, right? Yep. So he comes over and I literally, he was going to be my CI because somebody had to watch me, be over me anyways, sign my notes and stuff. And I literally showed him how to do everything. He's like, where's this? He's like, what kind of techniques do you use to get people out of bed? He literally, every patient we'd be done with, he'd be like, oh, that was cool. I totally forgot that stuff, and I showed him in the charts where to find sodium and hemoglobin and what the numbers meant. And yeah, it was a light bulb moment for me in the fact that it's okay to be humble. Even this guy who had taught my CI, he just hadn't been in the hospital for a long time. And he was humble enough to ask me as a student questions. And you couldn't be perfect at everything all the time.
Yeah. Great lesson.
30 years out of acute care, it's okay to be humble, and, you can't expect to be perfect. And I think that went a long way. Like I said, I had some humbling experiences on my 3rd and 4th because they were experiences I didn't know, but allowed me to handle those better. And I think it allowed me to be humble in my career too. Like you said, when people ask me to do stuff, I'll do it and ask questions and figure it out later. It's okay to be humble. I'm okay to be in a situation where I could fail. And I've now put myself in a lot of those positions, and luckily rarely ever have that crashed and burned on me. So I think that was a big moment for me. And I still to this day think of that. You come back to it a lot.
Yeah, it's great skill set to have, not being afraid to fail.
Yeah. I mean, that guy for sure wasn't afraid to fail. But just, he made me feel like I was king of the world. I felt like I was the king of the acute care.
You were.
I kind of was.
You were his hero for just a one day. All right.
Yeah, nice that's topic. Perfect segue probably into our top 5 then.
Yes, let's get to the top 5. This week, as Casey mentioned, the greatest male lead performers, the greatest showmen in music history. So we're not talking vocalists, okay? There's going to be guys on my list that don't necessarily have the greatest voice. Maybe they have a very recognizable or distinct voice, but it's about the whole presentation. Do they own the crowd? Are they the one that stands out in that band, in that ensemble, right? So that's kind of the criteria here, Case. Where should we start? Do you want to go? Do I want to go? Where should we go?
I think your list will be better. So I will start.
Okay.
No, I struggle with the list a little bit because I love music. I listen to a lot of music. In my college years, I went to a lot of concerts, but I can't say I was ever big into like the big guys, the big shows, things like that. I didn't watch a ton of recorded live performances and things. So I struggled a little bit with my list.
Okay.
But I think it's a good list. And I bet we're going to have carryover. I watched a ton of YouTube in prep for this list because the people
I like it. I like that you're doing your research. I mean, you're not just like, flying in this thing blind. I do respect that.
I had to go back and watch because like sometimes the people I thought were like, oh yeah, I think this dude was awesome. And then I'd go watch some live performances on YouTube and be like, boy, that actually wasn't as cool as I thought. But then there was other guys where I was like, I don't know this guy good enough. And then I watched, 30 minutes of like their best live performances. And I'm like, I see why people say he's awesome. So I think I had to do more homework on this list than I've ever done.
I like where you're coming from though.
But I think it's a decent list. So I will start with my honorable mentions.
Yes.
So like you said, vocalist didn't necessarily put you on this list. There's some good vocalists on my list for sure. But being a good vocalist doesn't make you a good male performer. But I did feel like two of my honorable mentions were like borderline just because they were so good at being a vocalist that it made their performance awesome.
Yeah.
And that was Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington.
Okay.
Those dudes could just belt it out. And there was something about just watching those guys hit high notes that a lot of rock stars can't do for as long as those
You're starting
guys
the list
do.
off sad.
Well, yeah, it's super sad.
A couple of guys who are no longer with us.
Yeah, I watched a YouTube video of those two doing the Temple of the Dog Hunger Strike cover. And it's like, oh, that's super
which is cool because Cornell did the original, right?
Yes. And then when those two did it together, Cornell did Eddie Vedder's part.
Interesting.
And he let Chester have the high.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
You should check it out. It's kind of cool.
I love that song. Yeah, Hunger Strike is amazing. Yeah.
Anyways, so for me, watching those guys sing is just cool performance. But again, Cornell was definitely more of just stand there, belt it out. I can't say
he could, man.
He's good. He's good, but like there's definitely better grunge performer guys, a little more energy. Mm-hmm. And especially in the later years, depression got him and it probably showed in his performances.
Yeah.
Chester's probably lower on my list just because he didn't, again, this is going to seem morose, but he didn't have longevity.
He didn't.
Most of my performers on the list have performed for a long time and made good careers out of performing. He just didn't have that opportunity.
That's fair. I mean, it's a fair point.
Yeah. Two other honorable mentions are just folks I just wasn't really into them, but I appreciate them as performers. And if I like their style, they'd probably be higher. Mm-hmm. Garth Brooks, he's, if I like country at all, the dude would probably be number one or number two on my list, but it's just not for me. I've seen his live performances. I can appreciate what he's doing, but it just not my style. And Alice Cooper would be the other one. Just awesome rock shows. I mean, the performance, the theatrics, very cool.
Yeah.
But the music itself never touched me, so I didn't really care for the performances. So those were my honorable mentions. And my first one on the list is my youngest person on the list, somebody I've seen live myself, and I thought the performance was awesome. He did it all. He sung, he danced, he played guitar, he took shots with the crowd. Everybody loved him. It was Justin Timberlake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I saw him at the Fargo Dome. I was on the floor. Like I said, he belted his songs out. They sounded perfect. The stage moved over top of us. It was very cool. He came to the middle.
What year was that? What time? What year?
Oh man, 2012, 2013. It was after I graduated, before I had kids. But yeah, and then he had like another stage in the middle of the crowd where he came out and he played guitar, acoustic guitar, and sang. And he had a bar there, and you could take shots with him, and he had a DJ that would take shots with you, and it was just cool. Not my favorite music, but I did respect him. I thought he did some cool stuff. He was, he was getting into acting at the time. That was a great show. It was way better than I thought it'd be. So, and he still kills it. Anytime I see him perform, I mean, he'll forever go down, Super Bowl, right? So he's got,
that's true.
his face on the mountain of wild live performances. So
That's
that's my
true.
number
I didn't
5,
have him on
Justin
there,
Timberlake.
but I've also seen him live. You know, as a gift, as a birthday gift to Michelle in 2007. I took her to see him at Omaha, and I agree. That was a fantastic performance, and he does do it all. Really blown away. He did a segment with a piano, kind of in the end, and that was pretty amazing. So, that's a good point. Good little start to your list. My honorable mentions. I also have Garth Brooks in there. Same thing. I don't know why I struggled kind of adding more country performers in here, which is really kind of perplexing because they are historically, it's a solo driven artist, singular artist driven, genre. But I really had Garth in there as an overall performer. Going back to the 90s when he was, zip lining around the stages and the theatrics involved, just amazing. I mean, he really did change the game that made it unique. I also had Eddie Vedder on there. So your reference to Hunger Strike was very cool. In a band like Pearl Jam, which was immensely talented and really probably the 1B, like the 1B grunge rock group after Nirvana. He was the guy. All respect to like Mike Creedy as a guitarist and everything like that, but I mean, he was really the stir that, whatever, the straw that stirs the drink, whatever the expression is.
I'll take it.
And then my other one is my other honorable mention, Jim Morrison from The Doors. And he could have, you can make an argument he could even be higher because The Doors certainly didn't have longevity, right? But when you think of
that's
Doors,
kind of why he fell off my list. Twofold: longevity, and he made some questionable personal life choices that pushed him off my list a little bit.
And I mean, the personality, I mean, when you think of The Doors, you really do just think of Jim Morrison.
Oh, 100%.
I
that
mean,
voice is so unique, so killer.
God dang. When my brother had some of his spoken word poetry albums and stuff, and it's just like, the lizard is crawling in the desert.
I've driven around listening to Come On Baby Light My Fire about 10,000 times. That's probably the first song where we hit those falsetto highs, as a group. Just being dumb.
God. And some badass though about like Roadhouse Blues. I mean, they were a great band, but he was obviously like the guy, right?
Oh yeah.
So honorable mention only for lack of longevity. My true top 5, kicking off with number 5, I just had to put Ozzy Osbourne in. Kickstarting off from everything that he did with Black Sabbath and having one presentation with that band, which is obviously legendary, preeminent metal band, even though they consider themselves a heavy blues band, blah blah blah. But then to be able to, take himself to higher heights as a solo artist and really be the guy. He was surrounded himself with some great talent. Randy Rhoads obviously early on. Later on, Zakk Wylde, some really phenomenal lead guitarmen.
Oh yeah,
but he stood out. I mean, he was always the Ozzy show, and for that he had to be a top 5 guy. All the theatrics of the '80s. He's my only real shock rock guy. I know you had Alice Cooper up there. I thought about Alice, but I'm like, I did like Ozzy was the gimmick. And that was the thing. Alice was kind of the gimmick too, but he went a little bit more pure theatric, where Ozzy at least had some musical sensibilities.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd rather listen to Ozzy Osbourne 10 out of 10 times versus Alice Cooper.
Yeah. So that's my number 5, Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, probably the only reason Ozzy wasn't higher on my list was I felt like his performance was 100% drug and alcohol fueled.
Flying high again.
So get away from me a little bit. But that being said, the guy still to this day can get on stage and can't talk. He doesn't know which way left and right is, but he can get out there and stomp a beat and sing his songs pitch perfect. So I do give him,
he had longevity. I mean, there's legitimate bangers going into the mid late 90s. I'm not gonna. I mean, I know he still put out stuff to this day, but
I haven't heard anything good from him in a long time.
Incredible music he at least put out into the 90s, And
Yeah, I think he had one
just
hit in
impressive.
like '04. I forget what the song was, but probably came out
Yeah.
about the time he was popular. Like his TV show got popular. He had one more
Yeah.
banger. I don't
Yeah.
remember what it was called, but
Good stuff
anyways,
though.
yeah,
Ozzy
that's
Osbourne.
Ozzy's good. Ozzy's good. I can't argue that. My number four, and again, maybe would even be higher on my list, but not the style of music I care that much for, is Elton John.
Mhm.
Dude was a showman, man. Costume
Yep.
changes. The guy played piano like I don't know, probably Jerry Lee Lewis was maybe, or Little Richard was maybe two other guys that played it with that much heart. But it,
Mhm.
this guy could get
Good
behind.
references, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy could get behind piano and just sing and captivate Madison Square Garden. You know, he
Mhm.
could captivate Buckingham Palace anywhere he plays. You know, longevity. Talk about longevity. I mean,
Yeah.
this
It's
dude
true. Good point.
still playing, and not only playing but connecting with young kids. You know, I mean, this guy goes out with Eminem, who was at that time, you know, the media played him out to be so homophobic, you know,
Yeah.
not friendly to gay, lesbian, that whole culture. And you know, he reaches out to him and they play one of the, don't know if that was the Grammys when they played together,
I
stand
think
cover.
so. Yeah. The
I mean,
stand
just
cover.
unbelievable. You know, this is a
Please don't
guy.
call. I'm wondering why.
Yeah, got out of bed at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, morning
Yeah.
rain clouds up my window. So I mean, this guy's transcended generations. He's transcended styles of music.
Yeah.
Um, Still to this day, he can get out there and perform. You know, I watched some of those performances in the '80s, and I mean, he's on stage laughing with the crowd. You know, he's got Donald Duck outfit on. You know, he's just
Mhm.
having a good time. You can't just listen to his music and not, I don't know, feel good. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's my number four,
He's
Elton
a
John.
legacy artist. Yeah. Yeah. He's a legacy artist. Also got to see him live, and it was '07 was a good year for me with concerts. I got to see him. I didn't mention Bruce Springsteen more because it's like just more of a singer songwriter in my opinion. You
I
know,
agree. You know,
amazing that
people
way.
say he's the greatest performer, but I don't know.
I can't. I've seen him live. He was amazing live. I saw Justin Timberlake, Elton John, and Bruce Springsteen all in the same year, all
That was
in
a
the same
good year.
6 months. Yeah,
That was
yeah,
a
and
great birthday present or whatever to your wife.
yeah.
Is it
Well,
all three of them?
no, I went with a buddy, my buddy Derek, to see Bruce in the East Street up in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, some of the XL. That was amazing. Really fantastic show. But you know, more of a, I mean, he's amazing as a singer songwriter, in my opinion, and less of a pure performer. So, which you could argue has more talent. Great point, though. I mean, Elton was amazing. I don't, again, it goes back. Maybe I felt like his costume utilization in the '70s was, I mean, that's part of the show, but yet I felt, again, too gimmicky for me to put up any higher. But yeah, obviously,
Like, it was gimmicky, but he was super good. Like, I think
yeah, I'm not,
gimmicky isn't
yeah,
gimmicky if you're good. Like I said, Alice Cooper's gimmicky not good. I think Elton John's gimmicky good.
yeah. Again, when I narrow this down, I think we talked about this. Like these guys are all my sidebar list to whittle down was like 17 guys.
Where did
So I mean,
MacGruber fall on your list?
gotta redo that math. Kristen Wiig will be my female one for her
Okay.
job in those shows. But my number four, I had to put Elvis Presley. And I feel like when you look at, if you love music, and I love music, and you study the history of it, and you realize, like, I mean, what he did by today's standards is nothing, right? It's incredibly vanilla, incredibly bland.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go back into the 1950s and let's just focus on performing music alone. I mean, he was amazing, right? I mean, could swivel his hips and own the whole crowd, right?
Smooth voice, butter.
But then as a performer, showman, I feel like I had to add some weight to the amount of movies that he did and the box office that he was, the draw that he was. And he had sustainability. I mean, he had a legitimate 20-year career before passing away. So, you know, he really set that bar forever. And, you know, even though the boomers are all, you know, passing away and, you know, retiring, passing away, moving on, You know, a lot of those people will still swear that he was like, you know, just amazing. You know, there are people that just follow his tour and do anything to see him. So Elvis Presley, my number 4.
Yeah, not a bad pick. Probably just a little too before my time for me to appreciate him.
Yeah. I can respect that.
I will say I've seen some of his last performances.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can tell this is a man who's not well. You know, he looks like he's some of those performances. I mean, it looks like he's actively having a heart attack while he's up on stage. I mean, just pouring sweat, you know, you can just pallor. This is a guy who's dying, and it's super sad because he's just almost forced to just continue to perform, even nobody cared about his health.
Yeah.
But even that said, those performances were pretty solid, you know, at the piano and just that silky smooth bluesy voice. Yeah, even on his deathbed, he performed well. So yeah, if I was a little older, he'd probably be a little higher on my list, but just didn't hit it for that factor.
He had a ton of range too. I mean, like he up tempo, ballad, everything.
Yep. Not a bad choice. My number 3. So of my favorite grunge bands, I consider the big 4: Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam. This would be the artist on the list I would least like to listen to, but I think he's the best performer. And my number 3 was your honorable mention, Eddie Vedder.
Okay.
I felt like his performances early on in his career, the stage diving, the climbing the speaker racks. You know, he was a lot more engaged. You know, I felt like Lane Staley was definitely the sunglasses, just belt out on stage. Same with Kurt Cobain. Not really engaged with the crowd, although I love some of those Nirvana videos because that's a different deal. That's
so much going on. So much going on.
Just songwriting and all that stuff. But Eddie Vedder and longevity, the dude's still doing it. And you can just tell this guy loves performing. There is something infectious about watching him even today get on stage. He smiles between songs. You know, he's that intense. He's got such an intense look to him, but you know, he's giving that to the crowd, you know. You could just tell this guy he's rock and roll. He's the grunge Bruce Springsteen, you know.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And you know, paradoxically, or not paradoxically, that's a bad expression.
It's too big of a word. You calm it down, bring it down.
There's so many, I was talking with a patient about this like on Monday or Tuesday, like the fact that we talk about Kiss, right? Not a big Kiss fan, you're not, whatever. Paul Stanley has said this before when he's asked, like, why don't you guys ever kick out new material? And he's like, well, the same thing with like the Rolling Stones. They'll put out some every now and again. People go see them, they'll sell out a concert. People go there. Nobody wants to hear the new stuff.
No,
everybody wants to hear the olds anyways. Well, Pearl Jam has been, I'd say, one of the very few bands to continually put out like relevant and really good material.
Yeah, they've evolved to keep up with the times very well. And, you know, and again, I think that reflects in his performances. It's just, like I said, you can see it. He's not stage diving 30 feet anymore, but still put on a phenomenal show.
Yeah, great choice. Yep. My number 3 is Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
You know, again, another guy whose presence, just stage presence, could command, you know, the whole audience. Had a mix of theatrics, certainly, but it didn't probably overcompensate. Obviously talented, amazing voice, great band. I mean, I have more of that coming up in my next couple. But, you know, Brian May is one amazing guitar player.
And a genius.
He is a genius. He is. He's an astrophysicist, right?
Literal genius.
Yeah. So Freddie Mercury, to really be that the focal point of the band for all those years, I mean, that's impressive when you have that much talent around you. And to elevate them, really carry that band through. And you could see no matter who they, I mean, they're Queen, but no matter who they plug in there, it's not the same. Nobody really truly, it's kind of over. It sadly died with him, you know? And so I got Freddie Mercury there, number 3. I mean, I could go on. I'm not going to try to do an impression, no possible way. But I mean, like from everything that he could do, from I Want It All, which is just a fun like rock anthem, right? We Will Rock You, We're the Champions. But then they got these goofy kind of fun like bicycle song and
Fat Bottom Girls.
Fat Bottom Girls is just like a, you know, it's like a commanding performance, and yet back in the era, he could turn around and be all like I'll just say androgynous. He didn't really come out really till like the end. But you know, in the 70s, be very androgynous with a performance of Killer Queen, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, hats off to him for kind of being who he was, and even when he came out, I mean, he's like, was it really that surprising, you guys? Right?
Yeah. Are you shocked?
Yeah. Are you shocked?
Like singing songs about this stuff, guys.
Yeah. So that's my number 3, Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, Freddie did it all, man. I mean, the piano playing, the singing to the crowd. You know, when he would sing a few notes, the crowd would sing a few notes, and he'd mess with them, and they try to keep up with them, and you know, just how he played with them. You know, like you said, amazing voice. He was a performer. The costumes, the whole thing, the whole bit. Yeah, definitely deserves to be on the list. All right, my number 2. Definitely, I would say growing up, this guy was the performer. Everybody knew him, super famous. The Justin Timberlake of the 80s and 90s, probably. Michael Jackson. Just beautiful voice. I mean, still to this day, man, his music is phenomenal. Dancing. Again, he changed the way people danced. I mean, that was just a whole different deal. You could talk about his music videos. I mean, he revolutionized music videos. Thriller was just a phenomenal music video and performing wise. I remember in the 90s when he had like the statues they brought in of Michael Jackson. I mean, everything was just larger than life with him. Neverland Ranch. The money he spent on everything, even up until his death, when you look at that final tour he was working on, I mean, he was pumping money. He was out there doing, 20 hours of dance, a day, just trying to get ready for this thing. I can't say enough about him. He changed how people perform. I mean, all the 90s boy bands, all that stuff, all the pop singers of the 90s and 2000s. I mean, if it's not for him, they're not popular.
Yeah, that hybridization of dance with performing and singing, pretty impressive.
Yeah,
my headspace, you could just tell, like when I'm going through my list, my headspace was definitely in like the rock kind of mode, I guess we'll call him Elvis Presley rock and roll, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't, I wasn't really thinking of like the Justin Timberlakes and the Michael Jacksons, but that at all doesn't make you wrong. I'm like, I can respect the hell out of that. And like I said, I should probably put, seeing Justin live, I should probably have considered him up higher, certainly.
Yeah, I tried not to, rock and roll is definitely my brand of music. So I tried not to pigeonhole myself into it too hard. Because there is definitely performers, and unlike Garth Brooks, I actually do like Michael Jackson's music, so he made my list.
Yeah, I'm not as deep into the Michael Jackson, mythos maybe as and Michelle, my wife, she's a big fan, and I will respect that talent definitely, but maybe it's just different tastes, different sensibilities for me. But yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. My number 2, staying in rock vein, and this is my kind of theme that I started with Freddie Mercury, but my number 2, David Lee Roth. And this really spun, the genesis of this idea came from, that whole historic like debate over any, Sammy Hagar or or David Lee Roth, right? And like if you're a true Van Halen
Van
fan,
Halen or
say
Van
Sammy
Hagar, right?
right? But if you're being intellectually honest with yourself, Sammy Hagar, I believe, is a better vocalist. Like I think he can sing the songs that David Lee Roth sang, you know, and it sounds great. It's going to be amazing, right? But as far as a showman goes and setting the foundation for I know you don't like glam metal. And Van Halen wasn't truly like glam. They were like
There's a reason
pre-glam.
it's not on my list. I don't want to spoil alert number one.
But. Yeah, but he really set the tone for everything that was going to come for, you know, that next decade and what was going to sell and the type of like the swagger, right? I mean, that's the charisma, the swagger, swinging around again. He was doing the zip lines before Garth was, right? And
that dude should have been in the NBA. He could do a jump split like no
jump
man's
splits, yeah.
business.
Total acrobat, still in amazing shape to this day. I mean, and here's my point. Just like Freddie Mercury could outshine Brian May, you know, for those years, David Lee Roth could outshine Eddie Van Halen.
Which is no small feat.
No small feat at all. I mean, if you can draw
should
any attention.
Should have been the vocal point of that band, and that was probably when the band, you know, obviously you named after him, right? It's like, and yeah, you're not wrong. For a guy to come in and go, this band's named after this guy, and he's also one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make this about me, like you said, swagger. That guy oozed it.
Yeah, yeah. Like so Sammy could come in and sing. He can come in and sing Panama. And it sounds like great, but like to watch those live performances from like when they were at their peak, it's not the same, right? I mean, there was and you can't replicate the kind of charisma that's in Ain't Talking About Love, right? Or Jamie's Crying. I mean, oh man, I could go on about that, but definitely, yeah. Easily top three for sure for me, but my number two, David Lee Roth from Van Halen.
I struggled with my internal bias on this one big time because he was on my radar and I couldn't pull the trigger on it. I said glam rock. He ruined the 80s for me, so I couldn't do it. I will say,
which is funny because they're not glam rock, right? But they but everybody decided to copy. Everybody copied their style.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they're famously the first band from like a lot of people who know music better than me, like the Eddie Trunks of the world and stuff. They will say that Van Halen was like the first rock metal band to like have chicks there. And that mattered, right?
Yeah,
like they were more
we should
accessible,
do this more.
just that way, yeah. And then that was the genesis of like Bon Jovi, and, you know, Motley Crue.
Wow, for sure, all those guys saw that and wanted to get into that business.
Well, even I had Vince Neil like on the periphery here too, and the genesis of like Motley Crue and how they went from, you know, really a punk band. But they're like, well, this is, I mean, kudos to them. They're like, well, we're actually going to go in this other direction now because we think it's going to be more viable.
Yeah.
Which is a good move. Smart move.
Yeah, not wrong. Not wrong. Yeah, I can't argue. Like I said, that's just me hating. I'm the complete hater. So we'll move on. That's a decent number two.
Thank you. Your number two was pretty decent too. I gave you a lot of kudos for MJ.
My number one was already on your list. Freddie Mercury is my number one guy, man.
Yeah. All right. I can dig that.
The theatrics, the costumes, the piano, the play in the crowd. You know, that was, man, arena rock. You'll just never get that back, I don't think. You know, these bands filling out, you know, 80,000 people in a football arena.
I got another guy I haven't mentioned yet. I have to mention him, but
go ahead. This is
no, I'm just saying because you're going somewhere with the stadium theme, right?
Yeah.
But Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl. I mean, he's definitely out there. I mean, that band is his band, and
Oh yeah.
And I think they're the
And Pat
closest.
Smear is pretty solid, but go on.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
just
And so
kidding.
is Taylor as their
Taylor
drummer,
Hawkins
right?
is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
But like, he is like, I mean, he's the guy that drives that band. And
Oh,
so I think they're getting back to that point, then I'll give it back to you, but they're the stadium band right now, I think.
mm-hmm.
They're that one.
Yeah, there's not many, and I would say even the ones that there are still, it's not the same like it was, where it was just, I mean, you could sell out arena after arena after arena after arena, and you didn't need to have 10, 12 bands like they do now and 3 stages to sell out arenas. You know, it was just,
Yeah.
we wanted to see them, and because he was a performer, man. And like I said, for me, he was the complete package. The voice, there's not many vocalists I put a lot higher than him. He could dance on stage. He could play piano. He's my number one, man. We've already talked about him, so we'll move on to yeah, all right. Mama, I just killed a man.
You got such a better voice than me.
That's not true. Anyways, yeah, let's move on to whatever hair metal band you have at number one, and we'll call this thing for the day.
Yeah, I struggled with where to put all this stuff, but same theme here, just a deeper level. Number one, Axl Rose, Guns N' Roses. When you look at, again, the surrounding talent, and my idea here is like, if I couldn't put James Hetfield from Metallica on here because Metallica is a band.
I totally agree.
The sum is greater than the whole of the parts, right?
Yep, I would never go see James Hetfield solo.
Correct. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of other bands that kind of fit that. And you look at Guns N' Roses and you're like, man, they have especially then at their prime, they had immense talent. I mean, Slash, for crying out loud. Yeah. I mean, equal. I'm saying he's up there with, like, he wasn't as I don't know. He wasn't as cutting edge as Eddie Van Halen was in his prime, but Slash was, if you were living in the 80s, late 80s into the 90s, he was like the greatest rock guitarist.
He was just like the greatest rock guy, right? The hat, the hair.
And he could just sling it. He just had a different style. Like Eddie was precision and Slash was swing. Yeah. I think as they talk about, that's drummer terms, but same thing with guitar.
And Slash was like personality due to his lack of personality, kind of like Slash was like Slash. Right, like it wasn't like, oh, this guy's awesome at guitar, you gotta see him. It's like, dude, it's Slash. That's all you'd say, right? Like it wasn't like, oh, you got to hear his guitar work on there. It was just like, oh, dude, it's Slash.
And I'm like a real massive fan of Duff McKagan. I think he's one of the greatest bassists of all time.
Awesome,
He's got a great documentary out. Just a really cool guy from Seattle, coming out of that immensely talented scene. So you have these guys around him, and yet Axl was the guy. I mean, he was the lead of that band, right or wrong, good, bad, otherwise, which I believe was like part of the charm. I mean, he was such an egocentric maniac by the time they dissolved and they imploded in '93. But he was also the same reason they got as big as they did. And he's up there, he created that serpentine dance, right? And just jockeying around the stage, also played piano, right? I mean, that's one of the recurrent themes we're hitting on too, right? He had these amazing ideas for the band too, like Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. I mean, you look at that, and I still think you can make a very, very valid argument that they're incredibly underrated albums, considering how they performed at the time, being a follow-up to Appetite for Destruction. So I mean, I have him in number one, just amazing. We saw them live 2017. I don't want to give away my top 5 concerts of all time, like we've been into that, but it might be number one. He doesn't have the same exact range, obviously, that he had in his prime, but still
that's
commands.
What's tough for me is that dude had one of the highest ranges of any popular rock band, and it's just not there anymore, and that's tough for me. But
he still commands the presence. And
he was way too hard on himself. I thought about Axl, because again, of 80s metal, like, I don't know. They weren't hair metal. They were kind of the antithesis.
They were not
they
hair
were the
metal.
breaking point of it. They were one of beginning of the end bands, I would say, for hair metal. Like, this could be cool.
Well, hey,
again, but
the ones that made it out, the ones that made it out had a different slant. Like you could make like Bon Jovi made it out, but they sounded different. They had a little different sensibility to it, and they evolved.
Yeah, definitely reimagine themselves later on. But the only reason I guess I didn't put them on my list was like the volatility of their live shows. You know, there was multiple shows where he canceled, come out, right? Do a song, and like, I'm over this, like, that stuff just sours it for me, man.
Like he just couldn't handle his ego was so big, he couldn't handle the co-headlining with Metallica.
Yeah.
Right. Like the nights that Metallica would close, he would get all pissed off and like storm off.
Yeah. So for me, being a performer's got to perform, and he just, man,
and
the peak was
agree,
great, but man, he ruined his legacy. He ruined his legacy. He held on to these grudges, and he could have been. It could have been great, man, and he just couldn't get out of his own way.
Well,
Chinese Democracy was a bust.
It was, yeah, but that wasn't really. But okay, so I'm going to keep debating this point though. So that wasn't real. That was Guns N' Roses, but was it really Guns N' Roses? Right. It was Axl and a bunch of other guys, but it's still sold.
Buckethead was
Buckethead was the guitarist, yeah.
Right.
But it's still sold, and it was a commercial success at least for a while. Now, if you're going to compare it to Appetite for Destruction, obviously it's not, right? But relative to whatever else was selling in 2008, it was a hit. And it was basically Axl and a bunch of random ass dudes. And the interesting thing in keeping the ear to the streets or on the periphery of music culture right now is that album's had a second life now. There's people who are going back and mining it and saying like, okay, there was some good stuff in here. It just didn't hit at the time. And they're actually playing a lot of the songs in their tour right now together.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't say I like the album. Maybe I need to go back.
Yeah, there's a couple decent, like Chinese Democracy is a good song, and So Is Better, for sure. Yeah. I like those two.
That's a good song.
Name drop those.
Yeah, there was one more on there that I enjoyed, but I forget what it is offhand. But
and they are releasing new music now, which has a different sound to it. It's got a little, like you can hear a little slash in there. Obviously, like we said, Axl's voice is not what it used to be, but there's still that heartbeat of GNR that's still there. And I think our generation, as we get older, that'll eventually go away too, the desire for it. But it's there now. And if you get a chance, I think they're playing Fargo in August. You better go check it out.
Oof. I am going to my first concert in like 10 years in like 2 weeks, and I don't know if I'll survive. I can't do concerts anymore, man. Who am I going to go see? Oh, I am going to see Slipknot. And I am excited, but it's general admission, so I am going to be beat up a little bit, I think. I just can't stay up that late and party that hard.
You're going full Max Headroom on me again.
Yeah, I see I lost you for a little bit there. I'm sorry.
Okay. So who are you going to see?
Slipknot. One of my big concert regrets is 1999. I had the opportunity to go see Slipknot in Fargo. Probably right.
And bleed.
Yeah, right. That was before that really became a hit. Nobody really knew about them. I was like,
I knew about it.
They don't sound that great. They seem kind of gimmicky, and it became
They did come out gimmicky.
Ended up becoming one of my favorite bands of the the 2000s. So I really wish I would have seen them but I was planning to go see Korn in like 3 weeks, and I was like, I'm gonna save my money up. I don't need to see this band. And it was been like $9 at Playmakers. So
the old Playmakers Pavilion.
Yeah, it's a lot of good concerts there, if I'm gonna be honest. So, anyways, I'm gonna rectify my mistake of 23 years ago.
They must be playing. Are they playing the Dome? Or are they playing?
Yep, Fargo Dome. Them and In This Moment and Ginger. I'm not really familiar with Ginger, but I like In This Moment. So
I'm a big Corey Taylor fan. I've grown to really, really like him as a guy. Like
Mhm.
he's done some other podcasts, not ours, you know.
Well, you never know,
Corey,
Taylor,
if
if
you're
you're listening.
listening. But
Sure,
definitely a
he's had
really,
injuries.
really a cool guy. And he's got some great sensibilities about him.
Oh yeah, he's a
I
no nonsense, no BS guy. Yeah, him and Machine Gun Kelly are having a little back and forth lately.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah, Machine Gun Kelly asked him to sing on one of his tracks, and then he decided not to use him on the track, and then they went back and forth, and obviously
drama.
Corey Taylor's like, yeah, some of us put our hearts and souls into rock, and some of us failed at a different style of music and decided to try to make it at rock, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Shots fired.
shots
Dang,
fired.
cool, cool. I had on that note, I had in those early acute days recovering from my quad tendon repair, I played snuff quite a bit. It's just you felt. I mean, that's no lie.
Yeah,
It just fit my vibe, you know.
yeah, that was you. Huh? I
Yeah,
would have
might
thought
not guess
duality
that.
maybe.
No, that came on later. Like when it was time to ramp back up, it was like, all right, time to pull out of this little depression, you know,
Yeah,
get my body moving
okay.
again.
It was just
But
Vermilion Part 1 and 2 and Snuff. Huh?
snuff is still I like that. We got to come up with another list, like I don't know, like amazing hits that are maybe not typical of that band, you know.
I like that. That's cool. Like, yeah, atypical songs from
When they
bands that are
when they
hits.
really when they explored themselves and actually made a hit, you know, and it was good. Yeah.
They had plenty of hits before Snuff.
No, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't sound like them.
No. Yeah, it's definitely I always think of Freak on a Leash from Korn was a big one where like Korn was this heavy metal band, and then all of a sudden, like girls in my class were listening to Korn because of Freak on a Leash. Like, yeah,
Just
he added that little flair. It was still a Korn song, right? But it was just that
yeah,
it was a different sound
yeah.
for them for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, go see GNR if you can. You will not regret it.
I
It's
probably
like,
won't survive Slipknot, so
oh, I hope you do. We got more podcasts to do. We can't be dying out there.
cast from the grave. Also, Tim McGraw's coming, so maybe I might have to save myself for that too.
I saw Tim 3 years ago.
Oh,
Summer, he was headlining like Summer Jam in the
okay,
Shakopee.
okay.
So he's great live. I mean, he's another. He was actually kind of on my periphery performers after seeing him live. Definitely awesome. We're going to get back to concerts too. Michelle surprised me with Foo Fighters tickets. They're at US Bank Stadium in August.
Have you seen them
So
before?
no,
I
they're one of my
saw
remaining buckets.
Yeah, I saw him in maybe the Target Center. But it was back when his leg was busted up, so he was sitting the
Oh,
whole
okay.
show. It's still a
Shoot.
good concert. I mean, he's funny. You know, they're telling him and Taylor are telling jokes the whole time. They're going back and forth, and
Yeah.
awesome concert. I mean, he still got up with the cast on and was hopping around stage.
Yeah. I think that's what makes him so cool, right? And I probably should have had him in my top 5 because he makes humor work in rock and roll, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem forced, you know, and it's not too goofy.
Yeah,
You know,
I went back
he's
and
out there.
forth on him too. If I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember why I chose not to settle on him. Maybe it was because it was just, I don't know. He's not even new. Like he's been doing this thing forever. You know, it was just,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I felt like
We might need a
talking
top
about
5
it.
of like, we just might need a top 5 to plug him in for like most talented, you know, people in music.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he can really do it all.
Yeah, that's a fun concert because it maybe again we talk about our favorite concerts, but like him and Taylor would switch. You know, he'd play drums, Taylor would sing and play guitar. I mean, it was a fun concert.
Cool stuff. Yeah, we're gonna also see not your favorite hair metal stuff, but this has been like delayed twice, so we gotten tickets like 2 years ago to see that reunion show of Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Joan Jett, Poison. So
someone's got to feed them, I guess.
yeah, they're selling out, or they were.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're actually going to be able to make the Big Stone celebration because our other concert got canceled yet again.
I'm planning to make that celebration.
Yeah, well, we'll have some toddies on the Budweiser deck. Well, they're not even playing baseball.
Yeah, it might get canceled, I guess. Yeah, that's way to bring it down, man. That's depressing.
Yeah. No, we'll just go do the piano thing. But
That's true.
like twice over now, the third time we've had our we were supposed to see Matchbox 20 and Wallflowers. So kind of a 90s reunion type of show.
Man, the Wallflowers are still together, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
That was
they're
that
a
was
good
a
band.
disappointing band for me.
Really?
Disappointing in the fact that I forget the name of the album, but One Headlight, Three Marlenas.
Yep.
Forget the name of the
Bringing
album.
Down the Horse.
There you go. Phenomenal album, man. I love that album.
Really,
Kid, like
fantastic album, start to finish. Really.
Yeah, like I love that album, and then I felt like there was nothing after that.
Oh,
really,
Breach is. Oh, you got to go re-explore Breach, their second album. That I'll maybe go with you after that, but their second album is very, very strong. I still really enjoy that.
I just don't know what happened to them. You know, they just didn't. I don't know.
I think it was just they didn't change a whole lot with the times though either, and you know they stayed true to their sound too. So I guess there's something enjoyable about that. But
I just
go check out Breach.
Wish they would have pumped better tunes out, because that first album was solid. Goo Goo Dolls, on the other hand, good band.
They longevity with especially a band that started out as a punk band.
Oh yeah, man. Boy Named Goo.
Yeah.
That was like that alternative rock stuff was really strong, and that was like one of those big albums. You know, they were like them and Smashing Pumpkins, right? And then all of a sudden, Iris came out and they were
changed their sound, and they changed their look too. They really they went like kind of more
bleach blonde, and they had that Our Lady piece look to them.
Yeah,
bands are like the same band.
Sneaky good Canadian band, baby.
Oh, I'll listen to their whole. We could be here all night. I would listen to their whole album. I loved Our Lady piece.
Oh, they're a very solid band.
Talk about again a song that maybe wasn't their standard, but Somewhere Out There, whatever that song was, like.
Yeah.
Man,
do you like it like that?
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah,
Superman's
Dead.
Awesome.
To go from Superman's Dead to that song, I was like, these guys.
I think
they figured it out.
We could pour a little fuel on that fire, because I think Fuel had like some bangers for a couple years.
Oh, my buddy loves Fuel, and
she calls me from the cold.
Yeah, there was, I don't know, the 90s were so good. We could.
Yeah, very eclectic. We'll
it was all over the place. Yeah,
for another day.
We'll figure it out.
Well, thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Nick. That was again a long one today. Thanks for holding out with us. If you like us, subscribe to us, follow us on YouTube if you want to see our ugly mugs. If you got questions, comments, you want topics that we talk about, you want top fives, you want to crap on Nick's top 5 list, go ahead. Email us at ptshoptalk@gmail.com, or if you're following us, watching us on YouTube, comment below. So thanks again, everybody. We appreciate it.
Make hashtag Pot of Thunder a thing. Let's do it.
How do you know that's not even taken? That's too cool. Somebody has to do it already, right?
Somebody's probably got it. Somebody's got it.
So if somebody has it that's not us, don't do it. Otherwise,
Pot
go
of
ahead.
Thunder.
And we don't even have a Twitter account, so we'll have to figure that out. We'll make it work.
You can hashtag on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube.
I don't know. All right. Apparently the world's greatest showman is now the world's greatest social media guy as well. So until next time.
Have a great week.